Hello, everybody. How's everyone doing out there? I'm here at Lake Superior Provincial Park, just a few hours north of Sault Ste. Marie, and it's the long weekend. And it's actually so chilly this morning that I have a little space heater running in the van. But can you believe that just 2 weekends ago, it was a heat wave, and we had temperatures in the mid-30s already in the middle of May. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about what I do to prepare for the hot weather. Whether you believe in climate change or not, I guess it doesn't really change the fact that it is getting super hot in the summer for long stretches of time. And there are a few things that we can all do to sort of help our dogs through that and to keep our dogs cool. So a couple of things I do when I'm training with clients. Number one, I'll find a shady spot in front of their house, like under a tree or something. If it's really bad, then I'll usually ask my clients to meet at a public park where we have plenty of shade to work in. So that's one thing. I walk our dogs much earlier in the day in the summer. So I usually get out about 7 in the morning because by 9 o'clock it's usually too hot to actually walk the dogs. So walking your dogs early in the morning, later in the evening, is going to be much better for the dogs, and sometimes that's much better for our schedules as well. Another thing I do is, I've talked about this in the past, I keep a spray bottle. So I will actually soak the dogs down. I just keep this beside the dogs at lessons, and I can actually soak the dogs down. This also goes in my backpack in like the water bottle pocket. So I bring this when I take the dogs out for a long walk. That way I've always got a way to keep the dogs cool, and this doubles as my water container, so I can give the dogs, I've got a little collapsible water bowl, and I can give the dogs a drink from this as well. So that helps to keep the dogs wet. A lot of people tell me they buy and use a little kiddie pool in their backyard, so their dog has a place to jump in and get cool. So that's always a possibility, but keeping your dog wet in the heat will help a little bit. At least they're getting some of that cooling from the evaporation, because dogs can't sweat, right? They sweat a little bit through their paws, but they pant. Basically, that's how they're going to stay cool, and eventually the weather just overcomes their ability to pant and stay cool. Now, traveling is a beast in and of itself. Traveling with the dogs in the summer is very difficult. And to be honest, my wife Chris and I don't do a lot of traveling like through June, July, and August anymore, because it's just been too difficult. We have tried everything in the past to travel in the van. So we do have an air conditioner back there. It's like your standard sort of window unit air conditioner. So that's great. And when we're plugged in someplace like this at a campground where we have power, no problem, because that's a pretty high draw on power. And like the regular 12-volt batteries that power, the lights and the different things in our van here are not going to power that air conditioner. In the past, we've tried generators. So I built a giant generator box, and I had a 3,000 watt generator in the generator box, and the box was on a hitch mount, like this big hitch mount basket on the back of the van. That worked, but the biggest issue was it now extended the van length by about 5 feet. And the van already comes in at 20 feet. So when I'm using the van for dog training appointments, good luck on finding a parking spot most places that is going to be 25 feet long. So it made it, although it was great and easy to keep the dogs cool because I could just fire up the generator, it made it very difficult to park. And the reason I had a generator box, so if you could picture, it's a box with a lid that closes, and I built 2 fans in that would draw cold air in one side and push the exhaust and hot air out the other side. And the reason we needed that was originally we used to use a 2,000 watt Honda generator, and I'll show you right now actually. We still keep the generator right there, and we still use the generator from time to time. But the problem is with that generator, it's exposed. Like I used to lock it under the van with a bike lock. But we came back from a little bit of sightseeing in Montreal one time, and we were parked in a very safe spot that we thought, and somebody had just come up and turned off the generator. So I don't know if the generator sound was annoying them or what happened, but they turned off the generator, and by the time we got back and into the van, it was about 29 degrees. The dogs were okay, so clearly it wasn't that hot for too long because it was a pretty warm day out. But that gave me so much anxiety about the fact that somebody could just come up and turn the generator off while we're gone, and then the AC stops, and now it's just a pressure cooker and the heat's just going to start to rise in this van. So I built this box on the back of the van so that we could lock the generator in, and then nobody could turn the generator on and off, which is great, but then the van became too difficult to drive in traffic, too difficult to park, so that didn't quite work out. What I did find this year is battery technology has finally sort of caught up, and we now have a massive battery that powers the air conditioner, and I can power it for about 8 hours, which is great. It gets me through lessons. The battery takes another 6 hours, I'd say, to charge. So that's great in just my day-to-day use at home as a dog trainer, because I come home at night, the battery's drained, no big deal. I plug the van in and charge the battery back up, and by my lessons the following day, I have enough charge to get through the entire day. Because sometimes I need a dog at a lesson, and then sometimes I don't. Maybe I'm working with a dog that has some issues at home that one of my dogs there is not going to help us in any way. So sometimes I've got the dogs for one lesson, and then the following lesson an hour later, I don't need a dog, but the lesson after that, I will need a dog. So it doesn't make sense to like come home and drop the dogs off and then go back out. But that's what I was doing all last year. It was brutal. So finally, battery technology has caught up, and I'll show you our battery. So it sits right back here in the van, and currently it's in Penny's old crate. So this is our battery. I'll turn it on so you can see. It's got a little LCD screen that turns on in there, and it will give us our charge. Right. So this battery bank connects to this one, and this was specifically made to run an air conditioner, and I get about 8 hours. To give you an idea of cost, this was $4,500 for this battery. I'm not kidding. It was the price of a used car. Well, maybe not nowadays, the price of a used car. It's a business expense. What can I say? Probably the most expensive thing I ever bought for my business, but this is our little cord here. This runs up, as you can see, comes across, and that's where our battery plugs in. So at least this will give me 8 hours of air conditioning time in this van. And I got to try it 2 weeks ago. And even at 35 degrees outside with the van parked in the direct sunlight, so no shade assisting the van, nothing, I was getting about 6 to 7 hours of battery time, because at that point, the generator, the battery has to run the entire time because the AC is running the entire time. Like the compressor's just going the whole time. So in extreme situations, I might get only 6 hours, but that's better than no hours. Boy, oh boy. The things that I have done in the last few years to be able to travel safely with the dogs, to be able to keep the dogs in the van when I don't need them, it's been a real headache. And a lot of people ask, well, how do you travel with the dogs? So that's why I thought I'd make this video. I wanted you to see actually how in-depth this is and how much time and money I have spent to try and fix this problem. This is the best solution because, as you can imagine, first of all, it's silent, so it's not going to bother anybody. I can run this, like, if you're parked on the side of the road, like let's say I've got just street parking and I'm going into work with a client. I don't feel comfortable just leaving my generator sitting on the side of the road. I don't want someone to take it, and I don't want them to turn it off. So at least this way, our battery is inside. It's quiet. It doesn't make a single sound. It gives me 6 hours. Nobody can touch our battery. Nobody can turn off the battery. Nobody can affect the air conditioning in here. I don't know how other private dog trainers do it, like if they're bringing their dogs into appointments every single time or what they're doing, but this is what has worked best for me. And even on a trip like this, I've been away for the long weekend now, and the weather's been cool enough way up north here in northern Ontario, but if it wasn't, at least if I wanted to go out and do some skateboarding or something where I don't need the dogs with me, or it's just better that the dogs stay in the van for a little bit, I always have this and I can always leave the dogs. Think even on a trip, if I have to go into a grocery store for 30 minutes and it's 35 degrees out, you can't leave your dog in a vehicle even for 15 minutes at that temperature, but I can power up the battery, fire up the AC, and no problem, I can go into the store. So this is a huge expense, and this is out of reach for 99% of dog owners. Why would you have to go this far? But I'm just explaining what I've had to do to battle the heat. As each summer has gotten hotter, I need a way to bring the dogs with me safely to appointments, and I need them to stay safe in this climate-controlled van. So yeah, it's not easy beating the heat, and I've said this in previous videos. Like, my concern is, what does it look like 10 years from now? Like, already it's so hot in the middle of the day through the majority of the summer that you can't take your dog out. Like, you can't go walk your dog for an hour at 1 p.m. in the afternoon in the middle of July, because it's almost 40 degrees now, and the dogs just can't sustain that. It's just too hot. So I feel like all of us are going to have to make some lifestyle changes as dog owners in order to keep our dogs safe in the heat. The weather's getting colder through the middle of winter, which is why I closed this year for February, because it's just too cold outside to train. And there are points where it's minus 30, and now it's too cold for the dogs to be outside for extended period of time. And then right dead smack in the middle of summer, it's too hot for the dogs to be out for extended periods of time. It's very difficult. Owning a dog, trying to exercise them properly and give them everything that they need is going to become more difficult as the climate becomes more difficult for all of us as human beings to navigate. But it is what it is, and I thought I'd share a little bit of like the mystery of how I travel in the van with the dogs and how I keep them safe and cool. And the real answer is, I have an air conditioner, and the air conditioner draws a lot of power, and that's going to require either an internal built-in generator in your RV, which we didn't have, an external generator, but then that's going to cause its own problems, because now that generator is exposed to all the people and the heat of the outside world. Or you're going to now, finally, battery technology is good enough, but the price is still super high. I'm hoping in another 4 or 5 years, when this thing maybe conks out, that batteries have dropped in price and the power has gone up, and the next time I have to find a solution for this, it'll be much less expensive. But anyway, that's it for this video. Just some tips on how to keep your dogs cool. I've tried those cooling mats and things like that, and I've never found them to work very well. So none of that stuff. Cooling jackets, that's my personal opinion. I've had clients that tell me it did work, but my opinion is that the gel cooling mats end up getting warm. The cooling vests end up getting warm. Really, the best way is to either stay out of the heat, early morning walks or late evening walks. If you have to be out in the heat, bring lots of water. Use some of it to keep your dog wet. Give your dog frequent breaks in some shady spots. Monitor your dog for any signs of heat stroke, like panting too much or anything where, you know, being lethargic. And outside of that, if you have to travel in your vehicle with your dog, all I can say is, unless you've got an RV that has climate control capabilities and you have a way to run them even when you're not plugged in somewhere, I don't know. I don't have a solution for that. It is what it is, but we're all going to struggle in general as the summers get hotter and the winters get colder. What can we do? I don't know. That's what I'm doing now. So hopefully that's given you a little insight into how far I've had to go to travel as much as I do with the dogs and to keep them safe. And that's it for now. So hopefully the weather doesn't get too hot too soon, and hopefully you're able to keep your dogs nice and cool this summer. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'll see you in the next video.